And why is he crying?
He's crying, Ananya, because of the beauty and power of those poems. Before he reads those poems, he only knows Jesus. He only knows Christianity, which is very beautiful. But suddenly he realizes, he says, my God, these poems, they are so beautiful. And because he's a poet and a writer himself, he understands that poetry cannot exist in a vacuum. He says, where is this poetry coming from? Which is this great civilization? Which is this great, country, this region, which has produced such poetry? So, he gets a glimpse into the great spiritual heritage, which India is. These poems of Tagore, they introduce him. Because he's crying not because he's sad. He's crying because he sees the beauty and power in this poetry. And he sees what it represents, the great spiritual heritage that it is representing. So he's shaken. And, then of course, because of his endorsement, the word goes around. And eventually, Tagore gets the Nobel Prize for these collection of poems, which are just 100 poems. It's less than 100 pages. And but they have such power. So our spiritual heritage, even somebody who's leftward leaning like Amartya Sen, he acknowledges and he says again and again that as far as spiritual things are concerned, India can take the rest of the world to the cleaners, because this land is so imbued with rich spirituality. And in a loose way, it's all Hinduism. We were talking about the Arya Samaj, and I said, the Arya Samaj is not enough for this point of view of converting people into Hinduism. Because the Arya Samaj, for example, it does not believe in idol worship. So a foreigner who likes to look at images, who likes to look at representations of gods and goddesses, Arya Samaj is not a good way for him to become a Hindu, because Arya Samaj is against idol worship. But this is part of the richness of Hinduism. That in my family, for example, my grandmother was Arya Samaji. She didn't believe in idol worship, but the rest, my grandfather used to believe in worshipping images. There's nothing wrong with that. To each his own. Somebody wants to do idol worship, let him do. Somebody doesn't want to, let him not do. Somebody wants to be an atheist, let him be an atheist also. So, there's a multiplicity of choices. You can worship the sacred, you can worship God in his masculine form, you can worship the sacred feminine. You don't want to believe in God, even that is permitted. So that is the beauty of Hinduism. And, it's something which we should welcome the rest of the world.
So, can you tell us about any other popular Western figures who have popularized Hinduism?
Well, I suppose the great phenomena took place in the 60s when the Beatles, which were the biggest group in the world, the biggest music band in the world, they were drawn to Mahesh Yogi. They were drawn to Hinduism, they were drawn to meditation. And in a sense, all of them were deeply influenced by India and India's spiritual traditions. But special mention should be made of George Harrison. George Harrison, because of the bhajans which he has produced.
Alright, Rajesh, so I didn't know that George Harrison sang any bhajans. What bhajans were they?
Yes, Ananya. I think George Harrison, he sang quite a few bhajans. Who says bhajans can only be in Hindi or in some vernacular language? Of course, we have bhajans in Hindi and in all the other languages which are there in this country, but we can have bhajans in English also. Foreigners can also write bhajans. For example, in the Christian religion, you have bhajans or devotional hymns in many, many different languages. And as Hinduism goes across the world, today 90% of the world's Hindus are in India. But when Hinduism spreads, then there will be devotional hymns which are sung in different languages in different countries. We can have bhajans in Chinese, we can have bhajans in African languages. And George Harrison, he sang quite a few bhajans. Recently, there was a conversation with Akshay Kumar and Prime Minister Modi before the elections, I think, in which Akshay asked Modi, Mr. Modi, if he had any favorite music. And Mr. Modi said that there was one particular bhajan which he liked very much. I think it was Jyoti Kalash Chalke. Beautiful bhajan. And in fact, when Mr. Modi said that, I was struck by it because it's also one of the most popular bhajans as far as I am concerned. So every now and again I listen to it. It's a beautiful bhajan. But I would recommend actually that Mr. Modi also listen to George Harrison's bhajan. George Harrison has sung a bhajan addressed to Lord Krishna called My Sweet Lord. And you probably heard it, Ananya, sometimes, but you may not have seen it in the context of a bhajan. The lyrics are very interesting. It's I wanna see you, I really wanna see you, my sweet Lord. And then it's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then there is even a Sanskrit mantra after that. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur, so it goes on like that. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. And in some sense, it is more popular than any other bhajan which we have created as far as the global audience is concerned. Say in India, I think the last bhajan which might have hit the top of the charts here would have been one of Lata's bhajans to Lord Krishna. But these bhajans cannot actually be compared to My Sweet Lord, because My Sweet Lord was top of the charts in England, it was top of the charts in the US, it was a song which a global audience listened to. It is a beautiful, beautiful song, and if this is one of my favorite bhajans which Mr. Modi referred to, Jyoti Kalash Chalke, this is also one of my favorite bhajans, My Sweet Lord. So I would recommend that the Prime Minister listen to it, and I'm sure he will love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful. So George Harrison was deeply influenced. He was awestruck by the poetry of Hinduism, by its richness. And it's not the only bhajan he sang. He also sang one on Govindam. He sang something else. And I believe when this particular single, My Sweet Lord, was released 2 months after George Harrison's death, it became number one once again. It's something which will move you. I mean, if you are a music lover, you will love My Sweet Lord. If you are a music lover and also a devotee of Lord Krishna, you'll be dancing. You'll be, very struck by its beauty. George, in fact, I think he said one of his wishes was that his ashes should be scattered over the Ganges after he died. So, but we in India, a lot of these Orthodox Hindus, we are opposed to spreading our message. We just want to keep all the beauty of our, Hindu heritage to ourselves. And this is something new, because Hinduism was more free-flowing earlier. It spread across this land, and we should allow its wisdom, its beauty at different levels. For example, I spoke to you about how these stories about gods and goddesses are getting popular in China. Other people, they worship, they are attracted to Hinduism because of yoga. Somebody is attracted to it because of meditation. Somebody is attracted to it because of the philosophy and the Upanishads. Dara Shikoh was so struck by the Upanishads, he started translating them into Persian because of the rich philosophical and spiritual content. So there is so much here, and we should be willing to share. We can't just hold it all to ourselves and say, no, this is our exclusive property, and go on with some stupid caste system. Recently there was a talk about giving Savarkar the Bharat Ratna. But the point is, I don't even care whether they give him a Bharat Ratna or not. It doesn't matter. But he had some good things to say. Nobody is implementing those good things. One of the important things which Savarkar spoke about was the right to conversion to Hinduism, and the stupidity of the Brahmin orthodoxy which prevented conversion, or which prevented even reconversion. So if you read Savarkar's writings, he talks about how in this land, there were a particular piece of territory. Sometimes the Muslims had it, sometimes the Hindus took it back. When the Muslims conquered, very often they converted forcibly all the residents there that you have to become Muslim. But sometime after that, the Hindus conquered it again. I don't say this is anything particularly wrong which the Muslims did. It was part of their, practice. But the Hindus had an even more terrible practice. So Savarkar gives an example of a few territories where there was a sultan or a Muslim ruler. He conquered it. Many thousands of people were forcibly converted to Islam. And 2 years after that, some Hindu king conquered the same territory. But those Hindus who had converted to Islam, they could not be reconverted into Hinduism. Because these purist temple priests, they said, no, you have started eating the wrong things, you have started doing the wrong practices, now we cannot admit you to Hinduism again. Such foolishness. So Savarkar writes that this is, something which assisted in the spread of Islam, and it, reduced Hinduism, with due respect to all religions. But we must stop this foolish practice of not allowing Hindus who are converted to come back, of not allowing foreigners who want to become Hindu to say, oh no, you're a foreigner, you cannot become Hindu. How stupid, how frozen. We must take Hinduism out of the fridge. We must remove this evil. I think of Hinduism as a tall, white tree, and you have this serpent. Of course, serpents are very beautiful, but this particular serpent of caste, which has, just is strangling this tree. So we need to remove this serpent. So if you are giving Savarkar the prize or not, it doesn't matter. These are just words, but implement it. Remove the caste system. Respect what Vivekananda said. Put this on a fast footing. What's happening? So many decades have passed and nothing has happened. We are still going on with the same stupid religious orthodoxy. And welcome the world to the riches of Hinduism. Let Hinduism flow. It's a great religion. Let people have access to it. Let's not go on with this, parochialism that only the people in this land can become Hindus, the rest are foreigners. So there's great interest. People are coming. They are meeting our gurus. But we are not allowing them to enter our temples. We are not allowing them to become Hindus. Why? Because we can't fix this caste problem.
Thank you, Rajesh, for being here with us today and telling us so much about the strengths of Hinduism.
Thanks, Ananya. It's been a wonderful session, and I think one of the longest sessions we've had, although there was a lot of sound disturbance in the beginning, but I think then as time passed, the quality has become clearer. Apologies to the viewers if we were not so clear in the beginning, but I think it's an important session, and we'll talk about some of the other strengths and weaknesses of Hinduism in other episodes. But I think this is an important episode. People talk about India's soft power, and they talk about Bollywood, which does represent a great soft power which India has. In fact, as Amitabh Bachchan said, that Bollywood will take on Hollywood any day once we have the resources. But apart from Bollywood, we have other things. We have our great classical dances, we have a great classical music, we have meditation, we have yoga. But you know what is the ultimate soft power in the world? It is potentially Hinduism. It's the ultimate soft power of the world. In times gone past, people refer to India as the light of Asia. There are books written called Light of Asia, because India influenced China, India influenced the rest of the world through Buddhism, which sprung from this land. Tomorrow, I believe India can become the light of the world. But if we want to become the light of the world, one of the things we need to do is to take our great spiritual heritage out of the fridge, out of the freezer, and put it out in the sun and welcome people who want to come and enjoy in its riches. So, but we'll carry on our discussion in other episodes.
This was your host Ananya signing off. We'll see you with another episode very soon.